just like my buddy Activerse. If you guys don't know Activerse, link to his channel is down below, because if you watch his videos or if you check him out on Instagram, it looks exactly like him. He actually just dyed his hair blue, which is pretty interesting, so you can check out that video. Just wanted to shout him out real quick. But one thing you have noticed about Amine's dreadlocks is in the beginning it looked like he was freeforming, which he was somewhat. He could have possibly started out with sponge rub or just kind of slowly maintaining his hair, or kind of lightly doing a method in order to start his dreadlocks. And what I mean by that is he probably sectioned out his hair and then allowed it to lock up and then just let it go from there. And then he had kind of the Basquiat kind of hairstyle. And if you were to continue his hair growth with that, it would have just been like a bunch of Congos, a lot of hair connected together. If you guys don't know what Congos are, it's basically a bunch of dreadlocks connected into one. So it could be anything with 2 or even more dreadlocks that are connected into one root. But we see now that his hair is completely maintained. That's how he was able to accomplish the Bantu knots, and that's by, you know, separating the hair, which I actually did a video of complete separation on one of my friends, which was actually Activerse, which is pretty interesting because I did a complete separation on his hair. His hair was all Congoed at the base, and I literally had to redo that entire head. So it's really cool to see the process of not only his hair starting from the beginning and it looking really cool as a freeform style, but knowing that he had to go through the same thing that I put Diddy through with separating the hair and literally just, you know, pulling everything apart so that it can be maintained in order to do Bantu knots, twisting with gel. And we have seen him recently starting to do braids. And all that is only possible if your hair is maintained at the roots. Because if it wasn't maintained at the roots, it would just be very puffy and it wouldn't sit well on his head. It wouldn't be maintained. It would be frizzy and it just wouldn't look right. So if any of you guys are wondering how to do Bantu knots, 2-strand twist, braids, box braids, anything on your dreadlocks and it's not working out or it's not looking good, it could be possible that your roots aren't maintained properly. And the best way to do that is with Jamaican mango and lime locking gel. That's most likely what Amine did with his dreadlocks, is he went to a loctician and they most likely just, you know, wetted the hair, separated everything, and then went in with Jamaican mango and lime locking gel. And not only does that give your dreadlocks a longer appearance, because we see now that his dreadlocks look extremely long, especially even when he's wearing a hat or just any hairstyle that we see him outside of the, you know, Bantu knots or the braids, his hair is looking really long. And that's to be expected because he's been growing his dreadlocks for probably 3 to 4 years. But I can definitely say that the progression of his dreadlocks is really awesome to see. But we see this very often with a lot of people in the rap industry. We seen Lil Pump when his hair was kind of messy and then it got maintained. And now it's just doing its own thing, really. But we've seen this with Sway Lee when he had his dreadlocks. We've seen this with Lil Uzi Vert. We've seen this with Young Thug. We've seen it with literally so many people to where their hair was kind of freeforming at one point and then they eventually maintained it and were able to do hairstyles like braids and all sorts of things like that. And XXXTentacion actually did that as well. He was kind of going freeform at first and then eventually maintained it very nicely and then was able to do braids and all the other hairstyles that he did. But I would encourage you guys, do the Bantu knots because it's not only a cool hairstyle, but once you pull them out, your hair becomes very curly. So we could probably expect some curly dreadlocks from Amine right after he takes these out, because he's had them in for quite a while. But I'm sure once they come out, we'll be able to see his dreadlocks being really curly, because this leaves your dreadlocks even more curlier than 2-strand twists or even braid. Essentially, how to do a Bantu knot is to twist the hair as if you're just twisting your dreadlocks with gel. So you keep twisting it, but then you continue to twist it, and then the root begins to bundle up, and then you keep twisting around that bundle of hair, and then eventually turns into a knot. And you could put rubber bands around it or you can leave it as is, depending on if it stays or not. But when I did my dreadlocks when the Bantu knots, I twisted it all the way down to the root and then I put rubber bands on afterwards. But one huge thing is I'm super excited to see where Amine's dreadlocks go in the future, especially to see how far they've came. Like I said, we've seen this with Sway Lee, we've seen this with Lil Pump, we've seen this with so many other people that have started out with some sort of maintenance and then allowed it to freely form and then came back in with some more maintenance to make it look really nice and tight. But I want to hear what you guys think down below about Amine's dreadlocks. Comment down below what you think about them now. Did you like them when they were more freeform, or do you like them now? Because one thing you have to remember, he had some like 5-head Congos in there, he had some 3-head Congos, so he had some pretty big Congos in there. So I'm not sure how, you know, healthy all of his dreadlocks are, but they're looking really good. And one thing you will notice, he doesn't have a whole bunch of dreadlocks. He probably has about 20 or 30 on top of his